The views and expressions of this program are not necessarily the opinions held by those at the Wolf Internet Radio. Thank you and enjoy the program.
Let freedom
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
The British government has learned that Saddam Hussein recently sought significant...
What did you say? Did you say the blackest candidate? What?
Medicare and Social Security is the biggest, most powerful voting bloc, are the ones who benefit from those
Yeah,
programs.
senior citizens. But the thing is, we have to do something.
Who was the Democrat out of Pennsylvania that was reforming or trying to reform Medicare back in the late '80s? He almost got killed. Old people stormed at him and like had protest signs and said, "You're trying to kill us."
I mean, I hate
Let freedom
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
The British government has learned that Saddam Hussein recently sought significant quantities of uranium from Africa.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up.
I said, why isn't Iraq paying us back with oil?
To see some dead thugs littering the landscape in Atlanta.
Yes, because for many years I was a Democrat.
Either you're with us, either you love freedom and with nations which embrace freedom, or you're with the enemy.
On this defining moment in history, you have done what the cynics said.
22 seconds. When we're going hot.
Say that we are one nation.
5 seconds. Okay.
We are one people, and our time for change has
I'm Jared Download, and welcome
We're hot.
to my Power Hour.
Good evening, West Georgia and the world, and welcome to the finale of Jared Yamamoto's Power Hour, exclusively on the Wolf Internet Radio. I'm so glad that you've taken the time and all the notion and whatnot to come and join us for the finale of this program. Joining me alongside me, I have my co-host Michael Smith, the Libertarian Chairman of Carroll County. Mikey, how are you doing this evening?
Pretty good. How about you, Jared?
I'm doing fantastic. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was pretty good. Got to spend some time with family and everything, so it was a good break from school.
Well, I'm glad that it worked out well. I'm glad that it worked out well for you, and you got to enjoy yourself. And did you get a chance to talk with some of the Did you get a chance to talk any politics with them or anything with the family?
No, it was mostly small stuff like the turkey and dealing with regular family stuff. So no, I didn't get a chance to talk politics, but there was a lot that went on in the political world. But how about you? How was your Thanksgiving?
You know, it was fantastic. It was great, and of course, I had family members listening to the show, enjoying what you and I had done, and especially the work that you've done on the program. And it's been an excellent semester, and I just want to thank you now beforehand, in case we don't get a chance to, because we've got an action-packed show. Just to thank you for coming on board and enjoying the program with me.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. It sounds like you're doing a goodbye or something. Is there something I need to know? Am I being replaced?
Well, not yet, but tonight we have 5 guests. Repeat that, 5 guests. We have Fred Curtis, the UWG SGA president. We have local host Adam Uglum from WLBB. We also have Quinn Roberts, the president of the Young Democrats. We also have Nathan Fuller, the president for the Young Americans for Liberty, and the Latino Culture Society's president, Brian Nunez.
Wow, this is an action-packed show, I think.
Yes, it is going to be, Mikey. So we've got all of them joining us for one action-packed night here on the Wolf Internet Radio. Keep it locked. It's Jerry Yamamoto's Power Hour on the Wolf Internet Radio.
Tell us what you think by calling us at 678-532-WO.
And welcome back to Jerry Yamamoto's Power Hour here on the Wolf Internet Radio. And before we went into the break, we were mentioning all the plethora of guests that we have tonight, which is absolutely thrilling. This is a Power Hour first, Mikey, wouldn't you say?
It's definitely not something we've done before. We've never had 5 people on, so it'll be interesting to say the least.
But speaking of political firsts, or should I say more than first, how about Herman Cain getting caught with yet another affair accusation?
Well,
what do you buy of this?
Well, at least this one seems like it's consensual. This one is an alleged 13-year affair, so at least he's not touching anybody against their will. It's still not telling his wife about it, but nevertheless, it's still of that sort of nature.
Well, I mean, you're looking at something now. You're looking at a situation that at first it was just seemingly one-night stands that were happening to Herman Cain, but now a 13-year affair. This is absolutely ridiculous. What is next for this guy? And I see now that they're trying to reassess his campaign, but what is next?
It seems as though as you've been saying, the Cain train is screeching to a halt, but the thing is, the way that this election is going, it's so weird.
Yeah, that's true. The Herman Cain train is definitely screeching to a halt. But let's analyze this. Here's a statement that he made earlier today.
And they mentioned what the accusation is going to be, but until the story comes out, I'm not at liberty to respond to something at this point. Now, when the story breaks, through my attorney, Lynn Wood of Atlanta, Georgia, we will respond. We chased all of these other rumors for 2 weeks before, and as it turned out, they were baseless. Why? Because they weren't able to come up with any documentation, any proof, or anything that was credible. And so we will address these when they come out, but at this point, I just wanted to give you a heads up. I don't have anything to hide. And we will address every one of the details as we know them.
Now tell us about the nature of your relationship.
And this is absolutely surprising to me. Herman Cain, if he's not the sleazy businessman that you didn't think he was, why not address it now? Why not settle the problem now with a solid no?
The thing is, you can tell he's hesitant because he didn't say that. I'm saying flat out no. Before any accusations come out, I know for sure I did not have an affair with anybody, so if anybody says it, I know it's a lie. He didn't say any of that. He's like, well, I'll wait until we get the details and then I'll make a statement about it at that point. This looks like there might be something to it, especially with what's going on with what his campaign is doing recently.
Well, personally, looking at Herman Cain's campaign in general, this is the definition of an implosion at this point. How in the world can you say, I'm curious to find out if you're still sticking by him after this. This man has gone through hurdle after hurdle, and his numbers have just been dropping and dropping week after week. I don't see how he can stay in this race at all anymore. Because in this one, it sounds like it really did happen.
It's very unfortunate, and you said sticking with him. I'm definitely not sticking with Herman Cain. I've never been in favor of this man for the presidency.
You've always been on the Herman Cain train.
Oh, no, you know that's not true. No, I've always made the case that despite everything that he still has a shot, and I still think that even with this, as bad as it is, he still has a shot. If it came down to a choice between Mitt Romney and Herman Cain, a lot of Republicans would hold their noses and vote for Herman Cain.
And speaking of Mitt Romney, the Democrats seem to think that Mitt Romney is going to win this nomination hands down. Because they actually came out with a counter ad, and I'm not sure if you've gotten to see this, Mr. Chairman, but this is pretty interesting. Listen to this clip that the Democrats came out with.
I have never supported the President's Recovery Act, all right, the stimulus. No time, nowhere, no how.
I think there is need for economic stimulus.
You're only allowed a certain number of flips before people begin to doubt your character.
The big issue with Mitt Romney has been the issue of abortion. Has he flip-flopped on abortion?
I will preserve and protect a woman's right to choose.
The right next step in the fight to preserve the sanctity of life is to see Roe v. Wade overturned.
He was pro-choice, then he's pro-life.
Or he flip-flops again, just like he did on abortion, just like he did on Ronald Reagan.
So now, do you see the Democrats? They clearly have their target defined at this point, and I honestly don't see how he can win the nomination anymore. And it would be surprising because both you and I would be wrong in this instance. That would be a power hour first.
I think that the way that the Democrats are presenting it, it's an incredibly ingenious tactic, because what they're doing is they're saying to the Republicans, if you nominate Mitt Romney, this is what we're going to present to the voters, and that scares Republicans into putting maybe someone like Newt Gingrich or Rick Perry or someone else that the Democrats know that they could defeat easily. It's a tactic that I think is to scare Republicans into not picking Mitt Romney.
So your fear is that you think that Mitt Romney is electable?
yes, he's totally electable because the man changes his mind with whatever the political wins. He's a Republican Bill Clinton. He'll say or do whatever the polls tell him.
Couldn't you argue, though, that he flips to what people desire in whatever area he governs or whatever area he has been a part of? Because he's been a part of different regions of the country. He has been a representative from different regions and from different entities. So of course you're going to change. The reasoning from Massachusetts is going to be different than the reasoning from Texas.
That is true, but you don't change your position on things like abortion. It doesn't matter which way. You don't change your position on abortion based on what part of the country that you're in. It's abortion and things of that nature are supposed to be so easily defined that you don't change it based on, well, now I'm in Texas, or now I'm in New York, so now that changes.
And you're right on that sense. And I'm just trying to understand, trying to see both sides of the conversation, because you hear that side. Well, wherever he's been at, clearly he can change. Clearly he can do this because he's said this before. But when it comes to abortion and when it comes to such huge social issues, is that really going to be different from Texas to Massachusetts?
If you look at things such as, you know, I represented this particular part of the country and I approved this sort of tax plan, and then over here I approved this sort of tax plan. We're not talking about things that you could understand where people change their minds. We're talking about things such as healthcare mandates. We're talking about abortion. We're talking about educational issues. Very, very complex issues that drive to the core of people's philosophies. He doesn't have a philosophy. He has a belief of, I'll do whatever I need in order to appear popular and electable.
And you're right on that. But does that open the door now for Newt Gingrich? Newt Gingrich taught at this very university when it was West Georgia College.
Yeah, and he was denied tenure too.
Really?
Yeah, he was denied tenure by the political science department.
Wow. Well, that's news to me.
History department.
Well, that's news to me. But nonetheless, though, Newt Gingrich has been soaring in the polls as of recently. And from what you're telling me, Mr. Chairman, is that he is not electable, though. What makes Newt Gingrich not electable?
Newt Gingrich has... Yes, he has a lot of baggage. And I'm not saying that he's not electable, but I think that he'll have a harder time getting elected than Mitt Romney. It appears that way to me, because he has a lot of baggage. The one thing about Newt Gingrich, though, he's not like a Herman Cain where there's going to be new stuff. Everything that we have about Newt Gingrich, even though it's a lot, it's all out there. There's no new stuff to learn about Newt Gingrich. We all know about his dirty laundry.
Yeah, and it's clear, and it seems to me that Rick Perry and Herman Cain, as I've said on this show, for weeks now, will be the first ones to drop from the race. But neither of us had Newt Gingrich going this far, and neither of us had him going to this point. But the problem with Newt Gingrich, though, is does he have the look or the knowledge to necessarily defeat Barack Obama? And it's sad that we have to judge him on those characteristics, but that's the truth. That's how it works.
That is true. But you have to also look at who we've elected in the past. And this is, I'm not trying to knock him. He's a very bright man and a very bright individual. But look at George Herbert Walker Bush, the first George Bush. He was just, if you look up nerd in the dictionary, the man looked like the definition that you would see. He did not look like a president, but he was very bright and very capable. So you can make the argument, if you're capable enough, you can go to the people and say, I may not be what you want me to look like, but I'm going to be your president. I'm not sure that Newt Gingrich can do it, but he can probably.
I could see him going further into the race, and with his latest endorsements that he's received, which we're going to have to get into on the other side of the break, is absolutely stunning. Typical endorsements that you would see for a Romney type character were the ones that were made.
Yeah, he's starting to scoop it up.
And when we come back from break, we've got SGA President Fred Curtis joining us right here on the Power Hour. Keep it locked.
You know, one of the hardest parts of my job is to connect.
On this defining moment in history, you have done what the cynics said we couldn't do. We came together.
Your government loves you.
You're going to let humanity suffer in the United States. That's the problem, though, that people have.
Good evening. I'm not Mikey Smith, but I'm Amber Jackson for your social media. And checking in on the polls on the blog, is Gingrich too right for modern Republicans? 80% says no. And the next poll, should the number of debates before elections be reduced? And we have a tie. 50% says yes, and the other half obviously says no. And checking in on Twitter, New York Times tweets, Facebook agrees to Federal Trade Commission settlement on privacy. The AJC tweets, third Georgia prison riot in a week leaves one person dead. And CNN tweets, judge sentenced Dr. Conrad Murray to maximum sentence of 4 years in prison and denies probation. And that's your social media update.
Thank you very much for that. And once again, if you haven't checked out our blog, it's Jared Yamamoto's powerhour.blogspot.com. The polls are still open until 9 o'clock tonight. And in case you haven't found out, we're on for 2 hours. You know, obviously you're on at 7 o'clock, but nonetheless, though, we're on for 2 hours. Our number is 678-532-WOLF. Once again, that's 678-532-9653. And joining us in the program, we have SGA President Fred Curtis. Fred, how are you doing this evening?
I'm swell, and for this time, I'm just going to be a regular old, law-abiding citizen. So anything I say, don't hold SGA up.
Of course not, of course not. And thank you very much for coming on. We've been trying to get you on for most of the semester, and glad it worked out for the finale of all entities for it to work out for.
Glad to have you here.
Glad to be here.
But I guess first of all, just for the listener's perspective, where is it that your political views normally stand by? Because I guess as SGA president, in order to win an election in a situation where there's lots of college students with mixed opinions, you almost have to keep that kind of hidden, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. I am a stone cold hardcore Democrat. And I make no apologies for it. I don't hide it whatsoever. Now, obviously, you got to play the politics of the university. And so, in doing so and in running for, election for SJ and whatnot, I did separate myself from my, personal political views and just ran as somebody the students could put their faith in to do what would be best for them. But when it comes to national politics, state politics, local politics, whatever it is outside of Student Government Association, Democrat all the way.
Now as an SGA representative, it takes a lot to become something with that much responsibility, a position with that much responsibility. What is it that made you decide that you wanted to be the Student Government Association president?
Oh, man, that story is kind of long. I'll keep it short. Actually, graduated high school in 2008. And my graduation time coincided with the time that our current president, President Barack Obama, was running for the Democratic nomination. And so with that, I was taking a government class my senior year in high school, and one of our coaches, she was actually a girls basketball coach, and they actually went to the Final Four a few times. She taught the government class, and she was just, as far as personally, she was just very much of a help to me. Academically, my mother worked a lot of the time, come from a single parent household, so she was just there, always willing to support, with whatever was going on in and outside of the classroom. And so she majored in political science and kind of swayed me and got me to really hone in on what it is I wanted to do with my life. I had no idea what I wanted to do my senior year, second semester senior year of high school. And with the president and being inspired by the election and then her influence, I said, hey, why not? Politics is a nice way to go. And ever since then, it's just been trying to be politically involved and just trying to make other people's lives better. However, I think that can be done. I think politics is the main channel in which to do that. So.
That is correct, and hopefully it works out for a successful career in the future for you.
We'll see about that.
But nonetheless, though, Mr. Curtis, you have qualified to play a little game that is a Power Hour exclusive. My co-host Mikey Smith will start it off. It's a little true or false.
Is it believable?
Speak the truth, the whole truth, frankly and boldly.
Or false.
This place is becoming a madhouse.
Do you have the power?
Alrighty, President Curtis. Our first true or false question. True or false? Obama should dump Biden for Hillary in 2012.
False.
False. Why?
I'm a big. I adore loyalty more than I do a particular candidate. Okay. And you've got to stay with them, no matter what the polls say, no matter what your chances are. Joe helped you get there. You got to stand behind him.
All right. Cool. I like that. Number 2, true or false? Herman Cain will get at least 1/3 of the African American vote in 2012.
False.
That was pretty quick.
I don't think that deserves an explanation.
Well, would you care to elaborate? Just maybe a little bit?
Mr. Cain has put his own foot in his mouth several times when it comes to African Americans. First of all, he said, if you're not rich and you don't have a job, blame yourself. That's not going to go off too well with a lot of African American single mothers who may not have jobs and who aren't rich and don't blame themselves because they work pretty hard. Second of all, he said blacks were brainwashed into voting Democratic. Those 2 statements alone turn off a lot of African Americans. And then to be frankly honest with you, and this isn't my point of view, but a lot of African Americans who may not be as involved in politics or educated, if he gets the nomination, throughout the general election, they're going to hear blacks are brainwashed. And that's going to turn them off. I mean, period. People are going to look at him and say he's an Apple Tom and whatnot. I'm not saying I believe that, but he's going to have a tough time getting 1/3 of an African American vote. I can almost guarantee you that.
Okay. All right. Very, very much truthful from you. True or false? America will go to war with China within the next 20 years.
False. Partly because I don't want that to happen, and then partly because you can't even begin to picture what a war on that level would look like. We just look at World War II some 60 years ago, and the impact of that, the economic impact, the number of fatalities worldwide in that war, and all military innovation has done since then is skyrocketed. Spending, research, scientific methods in regards to military have done nothing but increase. I just don't see how that would be feasible on either side. I think, well, hopefully, over the next 2 decades, we'll have good, strong diplomatic leaders in place around the world and in the United States who can help not plant the seed for something like that to happen.
All right, I like that. All right. And I guess I'll turn it over back to you. Very, very good true or false statements. I like that.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Mr. Curtis. But before we went into the break and before you came on, we were talking descriptively about this Republican GOP mess. I think there's no better term to put it than a mess.
That's the correct word.
And I just want to get your take, I guess, first of all, on Herman Cain, because he has been the subject and the highlight of our show for the last 3 weeks, reaching the tabloids, reaching, career heights. I mean, if you play any kind of, he's a household name now because of what he has done. How do you politically feel about Herman Cain?
I don't think you can have a political feeling about Herman Cain because he hasn't been in politics. So I would love to have a formal political opinion and be able to look at his record and his voting record and what he truly has stood for. And this is no disrespect to any CEOs of pizza companies because we need you, God bless you, and I love Papa John's. But you shouldn't be running for president. I mean, what has he had? A radio show, and he's been a CEO of a company, so he knows business pretty well. But he hasn't been in politics. Now, what his website doesn't say is that he worked for the government one time in Kansas City. I believe he worked for the Kansas City Reserve.
Federal Reserve, yes.
If I'm not mistaken. He doesn't want to tell anybody that.
During the Clinton administration.
Wow. No
comment. So surprising enough there, yeah, surprising enough.
No comment. But he tries to position himself as this guy who's just so anti-everything, yet you leave that tidbit out. And then, you got all these plans, you got all these economic plans and these plans to get the country back on track, and you want to identify our enemies and so on and so forth. Can you run for Senate first? Can you run for governor? Can you be a state senator first? Can you do something in politics?
Well, he did.
That we can look
he ran in 2004, and he likes to claim that he's not a politician. That's only because he lost. He ran for Senate in 2004 from Georgia. Like, yeah, you're not a politician because you didn't win.
Oh.
Well, the only problem with this is that Mikey's been on that Herman Cain train for a couple of weeks now. We actually had a contest earlier in the semester, and he stated that he thought that Herman Cain would win the Republican GOP nomination, and I have been giving him hell ever since then.
You said that?
Yeah, I said that.
You want to recant that statement?
Nope. I still think that he has a shot.
You don't believe that?
Yeah, I really do.
All right, so Brett, Brett, I'm curious to figure out who your pick for the Republican nomination is going to be and why, with as much justification as possible, because I know you're a Democrat, but with as much justification as possible, who is your candidate for the Republican nomination?
I would love for Herman Cain to win the nomination because Obama would mop the floor with Herman Cain, and Newt Gingrich, and Michelle Bachmann, and Rick Perry. The GOP's sole only hope for winning the White House on November 6, 2012 is Mitt Romney. Period. Point blank. Nobody else has a chance. Nobody else can stand up to Obama, and here's why. People look at polls, and polls are important. Polls are good indicators of what's going to happen. Right now, no one even beats Obama in polls nationwide or statewide, and you look at any of the key states, Florida, New Hampshire, Iowa, except for Romney. Romney, I believe, is leading Florida right now, 49-2. Gingrich comes in 5 points behind Obama. Perry comes in 9 points. Botman comes in 11 points. And you can, whatever key state you look at look at Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, whatever it is, it's Romney and Obama, either close or with Romney winning. And in every other state, it's Obama beating every other GOP candidate. If they want to have any shot at winning, it'll be Romney. Now, if you want to put Rick Perry, you want to put Herman Cain, you want to put Michelle Obama, you want to put Newt Gingrich, we would love it. We'd be able to save a lot of that $1 billion for 2016, put it towards our next presidential candidate in 2016, because we wouldn't need to spend that much for Obama to win it.
So you don't think America is in search for a deep conservative after what many conservatives are painting the picture of a very dismal 4 years under the Obama administration? You don't think that America's ready for a change in the tide?
I don't, because America wasn't ready for change with Obama. And I put up on Twitter the other day that conservatism must die. And I wholeheartedly agree with that, and I look forward to spending the rest of my life in efforts to kill conservatism in the United States. But and I think we as citizens talk a lot about change and wanting change, but I think we see directly with the president that this country is not quite ready for the drastic change that we need in either direction. I don't think it's just he's too liberal, and I don't think anybody who's too conservative will be really supported either. I just think as much as we try to say we don't like the status quo as citizens and as an electorate, we do. We get comfortable, we get used to things, we get used to the way politics works, we get used to the way our system works, and I don't think this country as a whole is ready for any drastic change on either side.
So what is it then that you would like to see a change from the Democratic Party? What is it that they need to do different to get the focus back from the American people and maintain or get the control in the House of Representatives that they don't have?
I don't think you can answer that in one short answer. I think what needs to be done is we have to be a little more communicable. I think what Obama hasn't done such a great job of that he did do while he was campaigning is you knew where he stood, you knew what he stood for, and he was going to make darn sure that by the last time you heard him speak, whether it was for 3 minutes or 30 minutes, you knew where he was coming from, you knew where this country would go toward if you voted for him. I don't think he's communicated with the public since being elected as well as he did during the campaign. And I don't know exactly whose fault that is, but I think you got to definitely put it on the president. And then Nancy Pelosi wasn't necessarily the best speaker of the House. Love her to death, but she wasn't necessarily the best. I don't think a combination of Obama, Pelosi, Reid was the best. A combination of leaders that you might have wanted when you had a supermajority. And I think that kind of helped with the discontent amongst Americans and not only just the Obama administration, but Congress and the view towards Democrats.
So what is it then that Democrats need to do to change, though, nonetheless, for going, assuming that Obama wins the re-election, looking at the joke of Republican GOP candidates that we have running now, what is it that he needs to do to win this election again and gain the respect of the American people again?
He's got to get on his knees every night. He's got to get a Bible in front of him, and he has to pray to God this unemployment rate goes down from 9.1% by November 6, 2012. And that's about the only thing he can do, and that's the only thing the Democrats can do to really change the way people are thinking about government. People vote with their wallets. I think it was James McCarthy who said it when Clinton was running for president in 92. It's the economy, stupid. And this time, it's really the economy, stupid. If the unemployment rate drops maybe from 9 to 8%, if he can get from 9 to 8, I think without a shadow of a doubt he gets reelected. I mean, Reagan had similar unemployment numbers, similar economic numbers when he was reelected in '84.
All right, and when we come back from break, we're going to have Adam Uglum joining us from the opposite side of the argument, joining us with Fred. Keep it locked. It's Jerry Domino's Power Hour on the Wolf Internet Radio. All right, we're going hot.
Gotcha.
Good evening, America, and welcome back to Jared Yamamoto's Power Hour, exclusively on the Wolf Internet Radio. And before we went into the break, we've had an exciting show to this point. We've had SGA President Fred Curtis as our first guest, and he has remained on board for a last segment with us. But joining us for this segment, we have Adam Uglum, a local talk show host over on WLBB. Adam, how are you doing this evening?
Doing just fine. Thanks for having me. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while since you've been on, and nonetheless, we could do the introductions, but you've been on here a couple of times, and the local followers they should know what you stand for.
The last thing I need is another inflator to my ego.
Fair enough, but nonetheless, very very smart guy, and glad that you guys could make it on. But I'm curious to get your take though with the Republican Party and the Democrat Party now. Now, we're in a time where this election is going to be crucial for both parties to gain power or lose power at this point. Now, Fred has been mentioning what the Democratic Party needs to do, and I'm just curious to get your take. What does the Democratic Party need to do to gain power?
First and foremost, I think they have to establish a solid platform, because there really is no plan. If you look at what's been passed in Congress, Republicans have passed 3 or 4 jobs bills, and I don't think Democrats have passed any, to my knowledge.
No, not to this point. No, there haven't been. But does either party really have a definition?
The definition of
a definition of what they stand for, because the Republicans at this point have got
do that firm things like the no tax pledge. That's one thing that's got a lot of people supported. It's got Grover Norquist at the national spotlight for being the guy that's ruining the country. That's the way he's being portrayed. And he's supposedly contributing to this gridlock in Washington where nothing can be done. It's all being attributed to Grover Norquist, not the politicians who signed the no tax pledge and therefore aren't. And what's interesting, if you look at the super committee, Republicans committed to raising taxes. I think a $400 billion over 10-year tax plan.
Fred, your take?
I just want to jump in.
Yeah, no, let's see, go ahead.
I would agree with the fact that Democrats need to have a solid platform, a solid foundation. Right now, I think the solid thing that everybody's running on is, okay, we got to fix the economy. And I think that's just what both parties are honing in on. I think when you don't have a 9.1 unemployment rate, then we can talk about social issues and all those other different things that matter, but don't matter as much as people don't have money in their pockets. When you don't have a 9-to-5 to go to, and you don't have money to buy a house or buy a car, and you can't feed your family, or you're looking for government assistance, you want a job and you want money first. And I don't think either party needs a platform outside of we got to fix the economy until the economy gets fixed.
And I think that case is definitely settled. Everybody, I think, is far more concerned with keeping food on the table than they are concerned with the war in Iraq or abortion or whatever. People are like, my personal life is not doing so great right now because it's hard to get a job, it's hard to move up in my job, because employers just are not happy with the way the economy is.
No, not at all, and it's a risk for people to move up. But then it comes to the point, though, in this election, with such crucial elements filling into it, what are going to be these swing states? What are the new swing states for 2012? Obviously, you're going to have your typical ones like Florida that are swing states year in, year out, or election in, election out. What in your opinion, what are the biggest swing states for the particular parties at this point?
The political process, not my forte. I'll be straight up and honest with that. Florida, I think this year, not going to be a big swing state. I think if you look at polling, the Republican base in Florida is very much rallied. Ohio, Mississippi, states, Colorado perhaps, those may be swing states this year. Virginia may even be a swing state. And Mississippi maybe not even so much. I mean, if you look at historical trends, states with Republican governors aren't going to be very likely to vote for a Republican president because some of the momentum that got Bobby Jindal in office is going to kind of carry on through this election.
Well, I want to piggyback off that. I actually want to slightly disagree. I think Florida, well, actually I want to agree. I don't think Florida will be a swing state. I think Obama's going to carry Florida pretty heavily. Here's why. They elected a Republican governor last year, Rick Scott. Last time I checked, and I think it was 4 months ago, but he had a 19% approval rating. I don't care if that was 4 years ago. A lot of them aren't going to be inclined to vote for a GOP governor. And also, there are a lot of retirees down in Florida with some GOP candidates calling Social Security a Ponzi scheme. That might rub off a little bit.
Now, but what if Newt Gingrich wins the Republican nomination in his so-called plan for a citizen-run committee that determines whether or not you're eligible to stay in the United States or not? How do you think that's going to... Do you think that Florida then goes to the Republicans?
It's a pretty wonky plan, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I don't think the country's ever done anything like that, where we give some sort of federal power to a committee of citizens? Is this going to be at the county level, at the city level, at the state level? I mean, if you're going to keep it local and decide that, well, this family's been in the community for 10, 15, 25 years or whatever, they can stay. We approve. And how do you do this in a big city? How do you get a committee large enough that it knows to some degree the person you're talking about? I think it's just extremely complicated to implement and even more difficult to work. And then it's subjective to the people on the committee, too. It's not a very Republican form of government, not even a democratic form of government.
Me neither.
It's really kind of almost an authoritarian type regime.
There are a couple states that normally I think aren't swing states that may be swing states. I think Georgia and Arizona. A recent poll had Obama losing to whatever GOP candidate only by 4 points in Georgia. And he only lost Georgia in 08, 52-48. McCain won it. I think the demographics in Georgia are changing. There are more African Americans and more Hispanics coming to both Georgia and Arizona. And so I think those can be key swing states. And this next election is going to be simple. And I think the Democrats are going to pose it simple. It's, which direction do you think this country needs to go in? Do you think the wealthiest Americans need to pay more? Do you think people should pay their fair share? Do you think we should rely on those who are more wealthy and who have more to help support the nation as a whole? Or do we have more individual rights, more individual liberties, keep your money in that sort of direction? I might not paraphrase that the best way to Republicans, but again, I'm seeing it through a crystal Democratic lens. So.
Well, I think you're exactly right. That is the discussion. It is about the economy. And to kind of get off your point, where it's the question whether or not we continue to rely on the upper 10% of the income earners. We've been relying, when it comes to income, we've been relying on the top 10% for far too long, I would say.
All right, Mr. Chairman, you got a last word?
I was just going to say that this all sounds superfluous and it doesn't really make a difference because the election is going to be in flux and you don't really know where this is going to be headed. I would agree with that.
Very well said. Thank you very much for coming on, Fred. Adam will be right back with you. Keep it locked. It's Sherry Domino's Power Hour on the Wolf Internet Radio.